It's cold outside, but you never burn my soul. And I know that got you down. I know that got you down. I bet you're sorry now.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 Bitter BM podcast. I'm Bitter BM, aka Felicia, and what's going on? So episode 3, it looks like we're gonna be staying on the topic of mothers for I don't know how long, but I wanted to come on here and just speak about something I found very interesting. So I was in a facility yesterday, and if I have a lisp, I apologize. I have to put my retainers in because my teeth are trying to run away from my gums once again, and I paid way too much money to my dentist, orthodontist, to go back and say, hey, I want to start over. So I do have a bit of a lisp, and I apologize for that ahead of time. But anywho, something interesting. I was in a facility yesterday and just, doing what I do. And a older lady said to me, hi, how's your day going? I said, well, it really just started. I don't know yet. How's your day going? Then she got into talking about why she was there. She had a son that was on one of the levels because he had suffered a stroke. And she spoke about how he had a couple surgeries and he was running in between hospitals and he had more tests to go. And they were trying to get him into a long-term care home here where I live. So I said, okay, well, I hope that all goes well. I hope that you guys are able to find him a placement and get housed so that he could get taken care of. And I hope that he gets better. That was the end of the conversation, but something she said in between that was that she had to travel to this particular facility because she lives sort of halfway across town and she would prefer that he was somewhere closer. So I said, yeah, that would make it a lot easier on you. Then she goes on to say, I wish I could travel because there's so many things happening in my home country and I have to be here. And I said to myself, that's a very interesting statement. And I'm not being judgy. Well, maybe I'm judging a little bit. Forgive me. But I found it to be very interesting that a mother would say something like that while her child was ill. Of course, I could only imagine. I've never had anyone to be seriously ill in my family, but I could imagine the amount of stress that family members, mothers, fathers, siblings might be under while dealing with someone who has frailing or just terrible health. They have unforeseen health circumstances that are very detrimental. I could definitely understand that. But that statement, after I walked away, I said, that is such a selfish thing to say. And then it brought me to this. Why is it that the parents can be selfish over the term of their children's lives? They can have as many selfish moments as they want. But when the kids get older, the kids are not supposed to be selfish. They're supposed to have as much care and love for the parents who did not show them that same amount of love and care when they were younger. Now, last episode, I spoke about my mother a little bit in relation to my own children. What this lady said reminded me of that situation all over again. And then I got to thinking to myself, am I being selfish for not wanting to be forthcoming with support for my own parents when they are and should be able to support themselves? Am I being selfish? I don't think so, because God forbid my own children should get sick. I would cut off every limb on my body to make sure that they're okay. And I would never in my dreams say, oh, this and this is going on and I wish I could be there. Like it wouldn't be something that would come out of my mouth naturally. Even if I thought about it, I would not say out loud to anybody else. Because I actually found what she said a little bit despicable. Granted, it's her own child and they're probably an adult, but I feel I was disgusted by what she said. I smiled and I walked away. I left it at that. Now we hear all the time about fathers who don't do anything for their kids while they're growing up, or do the bare minimum. And then once their child is of an adult age and they're able to see that their child turned out a lot better than they thought they would, they want to show up and be like, my son, my daughter, my this, my that. I for one am the mother who actually told my kids, like, hey, watch out for this individual, because I have a very strong sense that they're gonna come back and try to come around while they didn't do much for y'all when y'all were little. Now, both my kids are, one is a university graduate and the other one will be a university graduate. And I've been honest and I've told them both, like, listen, your father owes you guys $40,000 each. Where did I get that amount? Well, that's their tuition for the programs that they're taking. And I don't feel that is an unfair amount to request from him, because he's had the same amount of time as me to prepare. I've done everything else. I have fed them, clothed them, supported them financially, emotionally. I did all the rearing. I brought them up to where they are today. Am I resentful of him for not being there? No, I've gotten over it, but I definitely have let them know that you need to request this money. If he wants a relationship with you at the tender age of your early 20s, he needs to pay up. It's not my children's fault that he didn't prepare for them growing up. It's not my fault or their fault that he couldn't control himself as an adult. He couldn't get his life together. He couldn't this, he couldn't that. I told them, don't listen to his pity party. It's not your responsibility. And it's not your fault, anything that's happened to him. And that's a lesson I need children to understand. Your parents' faults are not your own. And their faults are not your responsibility. The moment I realized that, I just felt like a burden lifting off of my shoulders. And that's why I was going off in the last video, because I truly believe that there are too many parents out there that don't do enough for their kids. And then when their kids are older, they want to come back around and talk about my child, my daughter, my son, my this, my that. Like, where were you to say all these wonderful things you have to say to me now when I was struggling and needed you the most? Now, I've heard several stories of people sharing with me that when they were teenagers, they were required to help their mom pay the bills off of the job that they worked at McDonald's. Now, this is one instance where I feel it's extremely unfair. And there's one person in particular who shared that with me, and I feel has never been able to escape that grasp and that expectation that they're always supposed to support their mom, regardless of if their parent is being irresponsible with their money. All the bills just always seem to fall on their shoulders. And, you know, over time, I did grow to feel bad for this person. And this was someone I was in a relationship with. And I realized that I couldn't actually be in a relationship with somebody that had such a great responsibility to their parent who was working and able to support themselves. Because how are you going to be supporting our household if we had a child? Are you going to put your mother before our bills? Are you going to take some money off of our bills to give to your mother so she could pay her bills? The relationship never amounted to anything. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show, like, a lot of parents just not right up here. And I notice it's a particular generation. And I'm speaking from my situation and my background and my community, and there tends to be a certain way of thinking amongst a certain group of women of a certain age from my community. I've been noticing and just tracking how they think and how they behave, and I'm glad to say I don't want to be like them. I don't want to think like them. And y'all young ladies, young mothers coming up, don't do it either.